You don't get much more local than Dean Cycon. 14 years ago, Dean founded Dean's Beans Organic Coffee Company, which produces 100% certified, organic, shade-grown, and fair trade coffee, and helps support a healthy environment for growers and protects critical migratory bird habitat. Besides roasting only organic coffees, Dean's Beans only buys from small farmers and cooperatives, mostly indigenous peoples struggling to maintain their culture and lifestyles in a hostile world. And although his 14% profit margin could probably be something more like 20%, Dean insists on keeping his company's generous labor and benefits packages, as well as 100% health care coverage and profit sharing. Bill Fishbein, a partner in an earlier enterprise, says that Dean has shown that you can sell the highest quality product, pay the highest price for it, pay for the environmental and social value, and you can still earn a profit. Probably more exciting for some, maybe Dean was in Pirates of the Caribbean 3. He was a drunken pirate, so you can ask him about that as well. Dean's Beans are available in 800 locations nationally, including 90 Whole Foods stores, supermarkets, small markets, cafes, and food cooperatives, as well as the web, where you can find Dean's Beans at deansbeans.com and learn more about their work in coffee and also all the other great work they do. Please, a huge local welcome for a huge local hero, Dean Cycon.
What do you think he is? I tend to talk a lot, so I brought a watch. So I'll know where I am. It's really great to be here. It's such a pleasure. Sometimes I go where I'm asked to go, as you can see, but I often talk to business audiences, and it's a very different challenge to speak to business audiences. I love to speak to student groups, activists, farmer groups, pirate groups, whatever. So it's just a real joy to be up here. Thanks for getting out this early in the morning. I hope that the Equal Exchange coffee that's being served, fair trade organic coffee, got you started. Let's get right into it. I'm talking about deepening commerce. Now, I grew up in an era when, in the 60s and 70s, when business was a dirty word, when making money was a dirty word. And even though I kind of been able to process that and get over it a little bit, it's still an issue. And I think that's probably somewhere in your genetic makeup, the folks in this audience, you might have a little bit of that antagonism or indifference to business because of what we perceive it to be. And that's the challenge, because business, whether we like it or not, is the largest engine of activity on the planet. The largest engine of activity. More human energy goes into businesses, large and small, all over the world than any other activity. And so, if we don't get businesses to change the fundamental way that they operate in this world, all we're going to be doing for the rest of our lives is fighting these little brush fires, or big brush fires here and there, and trying to stop people from doing this and that. It's always a holding action. And I really learned that on Indian reservations when I was a lawyer working on Indian reservations a lot in the 70s and 80s. And what constantly came up is we'd fight these large gold mines, these cyanide heap leach gold mines, and all these other really destructive hazardous waste processing facilities, all these destructive activities. And we'd beat them, and then you'd turn around, and who's sitting in the audience? People with 97% unemployment. You know? It's tough. And one of the American Indian activists I used to work with said to me one day, he said, we're looking out over this land, and he says, if we don't get decent jobs here, the youth are going to leave. And if the youth leave, we're going to lose the land even more than we've lost it already. So somewhere, we've got to figure out a way to make business meaningful and responsible for us to keep our lands and keep our culture. And that marked a real turning point for me. That's when I decided that law as a vehicle for social change, while it's great for some, wasn't really the thing that worked for me. I wasn't very good at it. But I thought, I'm going to explore some other things, and I decided to look into businesses. Social responsibility, business social responsibility as a concept, has been around for 35 years, since the 70s, and there's been some significant wins. There's been some significant change. However, the change, frankly, is in the low-hanging fruit. The change is in the easy stuff. It's in reducing, reusing, recycling. Those are very mechanical things that businesses can easily come to grips with, especially when someone shows them a technology that makes it easier for them to accomplish a reduction. These are all very mechanistic things. The bigger challenge of social responsibility is, how do you change the very structure of a company? How do you change the way people think, the way they perceive their world and their role in it? That's the bigger challenge, and that's the one we're just getting to. We haven't really gotten there. Because the truth is, the majority of companies that are socially responsible are businesses that do social responsibility after they're successful, not socially responsible entities that become successful businesses. Those are few and far between, although there are a couple. It's interesting to note, a lot of, and my progressive friends, a lot of us have an attitude, I'll be socially responsible when I've got my house, I've got my cars, I got my kids' college fund taken care of, then I can afford to be socially responsible, as if it's a charitable giving as opposed to an internalized ethos. So there's this mindset that we have to get over, especially here in the United States. It's not about, we've got ours, now we'll deign to give you yours. It's really about, are we in this together? And how are we going to construct engines of commercial exchange that are going to allow us all to succeed and all to have the things that everybody in the world wants? These are the farmers that grow the coffee you drink around the world. Papua New Guinea, Ethiopia, Kenya, okay? Tough stuff going out there. These are not easy places to live. Sumatra, not easy places to live and work, and life is hard, and people are desperately, Nicaragua, desperately poor. So how are we going to make it so that their lives and our lives, our fortunes, are intertwined? That's the real challenge of business. How are we going to make our common ecologies survive and prosper, our common economies survive and prosper? That's the challenge. Not how to reduce, reuse, and recycle. That was phase one. And even though there's still a lot of resistance to that, we kind of got that down. Again, that's the mechanistic stuff. Mechanistic stuff is easy for engineers and managers to manage. The more difficult stuff is the mind change and the structural change. I started Dean's Beans because I was looking for that vehicle. I wasn't looking to become a businessman. I still don't consider myself a businessman. But what I was looking for was a vehicle to take my values and manifest them in the world. I had co-founded an organization called Coffee Kids to do development work in the coffee villages of the world. That was my introduction to coffee in 1988. My job was to go to these villages, Ethiopia. My job was to go to these villages around the world and create development projects that would help the people in the villages. It would be funded by my partners in this organization by contributions from the coffee industry. A very nice model, the first in coffee. Very good. It was a charitable model. And it did great things. I was not paid for it, but I got the advantage of traveling all over the world and just interacting with all these incredible cultures. That's the Ethiopian coffee ceremony, very beautiful ceremony that happens every day in coffee villages in Ethiopia, where coffee is an integral part of their life, not a poverty crop like it is in so many other countries, although it's still a poverty crop, but it's a cultural poverty crop. In any event, in Coffee Kids, after about 6 years of doing this really good development work, charitable development work, I came to a realization as I was sitting in a village in Guatemala watching a small well being inaugurated, and the photo's going to come up shortly. I looked at these folks and I said, well, now they've got clean water, and that's good. But what else changes in their lives? They've got a small well that may work for a while, and I know that pipes get sedimentized very quickly in places where there's not sophisticated systems of piping. But everybody here is going to stay poor. What else is going to happen? The company that donated the 5,000 lousy bucks, less than a day's worth of administrative costs, to build that well, was going to take the photos and the stories and tell you and tell me up here that they were doing these incredible things in these coffee villages around the world. That will give us the impression that everything's being taken care of. In fact, one corporate executive said, "We take care of our farmers," as if they were a commodified piece of property. Well, I looked at that and said, there's something wrong here. The business isn't changing the way it works. It's well off, it's wealthy, it's got its piece, and it deigns to give a couple of $1,000 to the people that provide it with its livelihood. The same thing I talked about earlier. They've got theirs, so now we can share a little. And most coffee companies, when we started Coffee Kids, said, hey, we can't give you money, we can't contribute, we don't make enough money, we're not profitable enough. It was nonsense. They simply didn't want to. Okay, so after a number of years, that woman's going to sit there for 4 hours waiting for that pipe to drip into her daily basket of water. She has to do that twice a day. That's the reality of water in Ethiopia in that setting. So I said, what would it be like if a company actually paid people fairly for their labor? What would it be like if a part of the price was a recognition that the reason coffee is so cheap to us as it comes up from the developing world is that there's a 500-year colonial legacy, at least in Latin America, where people have been underdeveloped and marginalized, and this is the best they can do, and the systems that decide both the price they get and the terms of commerce have nothing to do with them. They are put on them. What would it be like if I accepted that and said my role in healing that is to do it differently? My role in healing that is to pay a price that works for them. My role in healing that is to integrate our business into their fortunes by working as an activist, as a lawyer, as a development person in the very villages where we get our coffee. Not because it's charity, not because, as someone said, it's generous. I don't consider it generous. I consider it part of the appropriate price we pay for the commercial exchange between us. That's reinventing the languaging of business. Papua New Guinea. So we have a thing at Dean's Beans that tries to take social responsibility a little further than where it tends to be in most businesses. In most businesses, social responsibility is ensconced in the mission statement. And if anybody knows anything about businesses, mission statements have no meaning. They are theoretically a guiding principle, but they're not binding by law. They're not binding on the workers or the shareholders. They're a vision. They're not necessarily a vision that everybody believes in, but they're a vision that's on paper, that's put out again to us so that we'll feel a certain level of comfort that the business is doing something that we feel comfortable with. But in reality, it's frankly not worth the paper they're written on. We don't have a mission statement. And it's funny because we get consultants come in all the time and say, well, let's see your mission statement. It's like, we don't have a mission statement. They go, you don't have a mission statement. And it's just, it has no meaning. The mission is how you are. It's not what you say you're going to do. It's how you actually are. That's the well. The one tool we do have at Dean's Beans is a very silly little thing that we do. Basically, it goes like this. We turn around in a 360-degree circle, and everything our finger points at, we say, are we operating in relationship to that aspect of our business with our highest values? Whether it's the truck, are we using biodiesel or not? And we went to biodiesel when the finger went over the truck, to the reduce, reuse, recycle pieces, to the farmers, to our customers, to the environment. Everything we touch, are we operating with our highest values? The answer is no. The answer is no because we're human beings, and social justice and ecological justice is a process. It's a process of learning, a process of deepening. It's not a formula. So all those companies out there and certification labels and things like that, they have value, but ultimately, social justice cannot be reduced to a formula. It's a process and an inquiry that never ends. So we have biodiesel in the van, but the next step is, can we go further? I'll give you one of our no's, okay, what we've done, decided no. We've been looking at eco-containers, because now everybody, obviously, you want to have as much compostable and recyclable stuff as possible. So we're looking at eco-containers. And I got them, and I thought, well, it doesn't look any different than a cup. What's going on here? So I called the manufacturer, International Paper. International Paper. I called International Paper and said, tell me about the Eco Cup. What's different? And they said, well, actually, the cup is exactly the same. What's different is the lining. The lining in most cups, most to-go cups, is actually polypropylene or some sort of oil-based plastic lining. Ours is a corn-based lining, so it decomposes over time, and that's the only difference. And I thought, well, okay, that's good. That's certainly an improvement, although I wonder, can't you do better? So we mailed all our customers and said, we've got a choice here to do this. Would you be interested? Because here's the rub. It costs way more to buy these eco-containers than it does to buy the regular cup. And it's not because the production processes are any different. It's because International Papers can make a fortune because they know you're willing to pay more, because they know good-natured people are willing to pay more for what they perceive as a social good. So they're making a boatload of money on this stuff. And I said to them, how can you justify this in manufacturing process? And they said, we don't have to. We offer the product. You want it. We're the only people that got it. You pay what we ask. So I was troubled by that because there's that social justice piece about this. It's like, okay, well, over here we're saving the plastic, but over here we're buying into this corporate thing. And then I did some weighing, and I looked at the weight of the lining of a cup versus the weight of the lining of the cup of the ordinary to-go cup. And here's where we came down, and it's kind of embarrassing to admit it, but I stand by this for now. Asaro mudmen in Papua New Guinea, coming down from the mountain with coffee on your head in Papua New Guinea. The amount of plastic that we would save with the 100,000 cups that we provide our customers this year, the amount of plastic that we would save going into the landfill is about the size of a grapefruit. And I thought, wait a minute, they're making us pay $15,000 to $20,000 more to save a piece of plastic this big over time. Is that a fair trade for the money that we could be using in our development work, in our activism, in the profit sharing we have not only for our all employees at Dean's Beans, but for all the farmers? We have profit sharing with the farmers too. They're part of our business. Where's that money best spent? And we decided for now, because I think I'm hoping this is an evolutionary process, that we're not going with the eco-containers, because for me, I feel like I'm buying into an image rather than a meaningful difference. That's me right now. But it's the kind of struggle we go through when we make the commitment to look at our values. We don't take the quick and easy. Oh, now there's an eco-cup, let's do that. Oh, now there's an organic this, let's do that. We look a little deeper and say, okay, what's really happening here, and how is it furthering things? And at this stage, God bless the eco-cup, but I hope the next step will be more meaningful economically and ecologically. We don't want to buy into that at the moment. It's a struggle, but it's where we've come down. Someone said to me, oh man, what you do is so great. It was at a business conference. I said, I want to have a values-based business. How do I form a values-based business? And I thought about it, and I said, well, the truth is, every business is a values-based business. You can't have a non-values-based business. The question is, are the values of that business the values that you believe in? Are the values that the business actually manifests the ones that you hold in your heart or your head or on your mission statement? It's not that there's no values, it's just, are they appropriate values? And that's an important thing to learn. It's not about creating something from nothing. It's about recreating something from an existing set of values that are very hard to disentangle from people's souls, from their heads, and from their economics. So let's move into what this is all about. What are the values of corporations today, and the dynamics and the myths of the corporate world that really have to be changed if we're ever going to move from a holding action and a brush firefighting situation into meaningful social change. Here we go. Let's look deep. The first is the maximization of profit. Business believes that shareholders, that the law requires a corporation to maximize shareholder profit. You've probably heard that, and it's become a mantra. Oh, we can't do that. It would hurt our profit, and our legal responsibility as directors, as officers, is to maximize shareholder profit. In fact, recently, one of the heads of Procter & Gamble at a conference we were at said something, I didn't think he knew the mic was on, one of those deals, and he said, hey, the purpose of business is to make profit. It's not to do social good. He said it in a very dismissive way. So it tells you that we've got a long way to go. Anyway, so the truth is, the law does not require corporations to maximize shareholder profit. What it does require corporations to do is maximize shareholder value. That's a very different proposition, but the corporate head, the corporate culture, has morphed value into profit. Profit is a piece of value, and the reason I started Dean's Beans, the big deal behind it, was to see if it would be possible for a business to do the things that we do, to engage in the lives of farmers, to lift all boats together, to do the development and advocacy work, to share profits equally and still be profitable. If that was possible, then we put to bed the issue of profit versus environment, profit versus social good, profit versus cultural integrity. They're not at odds. They can survive together depending on what you think value is, even what profit is. So for us, we define profit and value very differently from a simple economic equation. To us, at Dean's Beans, and to many people in the fair trade movement, although I won't say to all, and I'll get to that in a minute, profit is, we don't seek to maximize profit at any expense. We seek to have enough. I gave a talk at Babson Graduate Business School here a couple months ago, and with the 30 or 40 students and their business students, they said, well, what about your profit margin? And I said, well, our profit margin is enough. And they said, what does that mean? I said, well, it means that it's enough. I mean, we have enough. We don't want more. They said, what do you mean you don't want more? You have to have more. You have to have more. And they got really upset with me. And I said, why do I have to have more? I said, everybody at Dean's Beans makes the highest wages in our area. Everybody's got profit sharing. We pay the farmers more than anybody else across the board, and we sell for less to the consumer. They've got profit sharing. They've got reforestation programs. We're all in it together. That's enough. Why do I need more? Besides, actually, if I have more, and my daughter was in the audience for one of these talks, she got very upset with me. I said, if I make $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 more, my kids are just going to piss it away when I'm gone anyway, so what's the point? Oh, she got very upset with that. But it is true. Intergenerationally, wealth does not translate over 2 or 3 generations, so why bother? Okay, so we define profit very differently. Profit to us is what's enough. We also define value as our value are the ecosystems of the people we deal with, is the cultural integrity of the indigenous groups we deal with. Is it being respected and promoted by our behavior? That's how we look at value. And we take that very seriously. That's not a mission statement. That's what we do. This is me feeding the hyenas outside of the walled city of Harar in Ethiopia. It's quite an experience. It's in the book. You got to read the book. I forgot. My publisher told me I have to remind you that we have a book and it's out there for sale, and I'll be happy to sign it. So we believe that healthy ecosystems, healthy people, and informed consumers on our side are what constitute value for us. And I started out with a small roaster and 8 bags of coffee 14 years ago, and I was doing it to prove something. We're 14 years later. We're a $3 million business. We're all over the country. I speak at conferences all the time. We're healthy profit. That's enough. It's all right. So that's what we look at for value. And basically, we also have another silly little mantra at Dean's Beans, but even to say it, it sounds like a bumper sticker. We're in it to make a living, not a killing. Simple as that. So, another myth about businesses is the myth of growth. Businesses will say constantly, it's part of the basic literature, that we must grow at all costs. Business growth is a goal. And so businesses set growth goals every year and then do what they have to do to get there. For example, GM sets a growth goal of 15% in car sales. Now, how the hell are we going to get there? We've set the goal. Well, we can set up factories in Eastern Europe and close the ones down here because it's cheaper labor and environmental laws aren't being upheld over there. That's good. We can close down plants here, kick people out of work, cut down benefits, and go belly up on the pension plan. There's all sorts of things we can do to reach that goal, but none of them have anything to do with the value of the environment, the value of the workers on all sides of the world. It's about growth for growth's sake because there's a belief that you need to grow in order to survive. I don't believe it. I believe that we can mimic, we were talking about biomimicry here before, I think, we can mimic the environment, and that's our growth philosophy. Our growth philosophy at Dean's Beans is that we grow when the environment is ready. You can look outside of Dean's Beans, and there's lots of plants out there. They know how to grow. You know, they're not killing each other. How are they surviving? Well, when the environment is ready, when the nutrients, to us resources, when the resources are ready and the community is ready, growth occurs as a natural outcome of ecology, or in our case, a natural outcome of doing business in an appropriate way. Growth occurs. Someone said, what's your growth goal? It's like, we don't have a growth goal. It's like, no, you don't have a mission statement, you don't have a growth goal. What kind of a business are you? So it's like, well, our goal for growth is that it will occur if we do what we do in an appropriate fashion. As a result, I got to tell you, we have averaged 20 to 25% growth every year for the last 8 years. This is we have no salespeople, we have no marketing people, we don't advertise. So we're breaking all the rules and we're growing like crazy. What's that all about? It's about people, grassroots, getting the word that these guys are doing something that feels right to us, and we're so transparent in how we do it that people can go on our website or call me and ask or go with me and find out what we really do. And that's, to us, the only advertising we need is transparency and integrity. And that'll go out there and do the work for us. We don't need clever jingles. Although I must tell you, every now and then we do a commercial on WRSI in Northampton because I write them and they're fun. For example, the commercial, A Visit to the Mall of Social Responsibility. I'm in there with my daughter and I say, come on, honey, let's go get a Mall of Social Responsibility. Let's go get some Ben & Jerry's. And my daughter goes, Dad, they're owned by Unilever now. It's like, oh, well, okay, we'll just, I need some toothpaste. Let's get some Tom's of Maine. Sorry, that's Colgate. Oh, okay, well, how about the Body Shop? We'll get something for Mom. Sorry, Dad, that's L'Oreal. So it's like, go through the list, Odwalla, Coke, and it's like, is there nothing real anymore? So those are the kind of commercials I do. It's just for fun. We also have one that is playing now because it's Halloween about in Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory, and I pour all sorts of chemicals and talk about liver sores and leukemias, all the things that are in, and the lab assistant says, it's beautiful, master, what is it? Your morning coffee, with the thunder and everything. Because the top 10 pesticides used in coffee are all banned for use in the United States or heavily regulated. But you can use them on coffee with people who don't speak or read English, are illiterate, and there are no safeguards for how to use pesticides. So it's organics in coffee is profound and critical. So growth. We've used the ecological model where growth is the outcome of good business as opposed to the false need to grow for growth's sake. Pollution is the inevitable byproduct of growth. That is a business mantra. But we know from the mulching on the farms of organic, that's my adopted daughter in Ethiopia, the mulching on the farms around the world in organics that prevent pollution of the water sources. Just some simple act, from that act right there, all the way up to the larger scale, The afterburner that we're changing, we're not using a natural gas-fired afterburner, even though it's a standard. We've created a wet scrubber, water washing afterburner that uses no natural gas with an electrostatic precipitator at the end that uses about 100 watts of light. And at the end of the day, we've done as much scrubbing and cleaning of our roaster afterburner as this honking $20,000 afterburner that uses $1,000 of natural gas every month and pokes a massive hole in the ozone layer. We've eliminated it because pollution is not a necessary outcome of business or growth. I don't believe it. So we can just throw that one out. How are we doing time-wise there? I'm out of time. I can't believe it. I thought you were rating me. I said 5, 10, 0. I said, oh, geez, I'm getting worse and worse. We're down to 0. All right. I could talk about this stuff for hours, and frankly, the book is fun. The book is about traveling in the coffee worlds, because you probably can't go to all the places I go, and what people's lives are like, and the impact of our buying decision on those lives, the globalization struggles people go through, the ecological struggles. It's not this, it's that, and that's a lot of fun. I could talk about this for hours and hours, but let me leave you with this, since we're at the 0 range, okay? Social responsibility and behavior is infinitely possible. It's infinitely possible and doable right here, right now. Corporations, any kind of structure, corporate structure is a reflection of our time. It's a reflection of this moment in time. The corporate structures that we have and the pesticides that we use and all that's tied into that, the maximization of profit, all that stuff is only about 70 years old in terms of historical cycles. What we've got now, this massive multi-corporate presence and the disconnecting of corporate control from the public control, is really quite new. So even though most of us have been born into it, so it looks like this is the world we were born into, it's not. It's only a moment in time. Knowing that makes it easier to say this can be changed. And I think that for all of us, what we need to do is go out and find that place where you can effectively manifest your values, be it through the arts, be it through teaching, be it through law, be it through business. Find your passion, act on it, and the world will change and will become a better place. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Woo!